and welcome back to my bog. I felt it was only fitting, as the last episode we found out that there was cursed treasure, which caused our skeletal friends to arise. A hag had apparently cursed the treasure, and the pirates who had gathered it, well, they were cursed. So naturally, the curse left them as skeletons after being executed by the people who lived in the village before it became a, well, wrecked ruin. So the party, after having dealt with these skeletons, decided that they didn't want to stay here the night. So they made their way through the woods, and on the way they encountered a nightmare. But luckily, the nightmare didn't want to bother with them. They didn't want to bother with it, so they managed to get back to Val'y'dar. On their way there, they mentioned this issue with the skeletons to Ferd, the ferryman, or at least now he's a ferryman. That seems to be the case. And he mentioned that there were rumors of the pirates and the pirates' treasure being cursed, so the party decided they probably didn't want anything to do with this. They got back to the village and decided that they were going to need another party member to help them out on their travels. And so, we went ahead and added a new party member. This one being an illusionist named Val'y'dar. Val'y'dar is evil, just like Todrick, so that's an interesting little dynamic there. The party decided they would continue exploring after this, and so... Of course, there's a plane flying overhead. It's okay, we'll just wait for the plane. Okay, we'll wait for the plane a little bit longer. So the party agreed that they were going to continue exploring out there to the west. So after crossing the water, they traveled a little bit southwest, and encountered some mountains and some hills. Now, before the party turned around and decided they were going to head back, they ran into a random encounter, which were frost giants of all things. Again, the luckiness of the party is unbound, as the party managed to somehow befriend them, at least for the time being. Somehow the frost giants had mentioned some sort of warning about what might be out there in the wilderness. But luckily the party encountered nothing else, and they made it back to the village of Val'y'dar. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. The village of Val'y'dar, and that's kind of where we're left off. Now we have a decision to make. Do we go west, or do we go east? So let's go figure that out. You know, I'm always taking videos in front of this little swamp here. And all I can think about when I look out there is, I betcha there's a lot of XP waiting in them trees. Alright, welcome back. I got fancy lighting equipment, and you know, this whole set that I got going on here is really starting to come together in a crappy sense. Like ready? Isn't that overstimulating? What if I put that into super fast mode? Huh? Pretty sweet. Just for your sanity and mine, I think we'll put it onto a color that's not absolutely agonizing. And... okay, the vibe. It's lighter now. Now I don't have to worry about being blinded by colorful lights and all that stuff. So let's get into this, shall we? We left off on a cliffhanger last time, a very crazy cliffhanger of which way will we travel? Will we go east, west, or north? South would put us in the ocean, so I think this calls for a D3 roll. Let's get into this. Okay, so as we know, going west across the water with Ferd the ferryman brings us over to the mountains that we had seen before, the hills, the swamp, the pirate town that almost killed the entire party. Going to the east leads us to the Keep of Kagramar, where we dealt with them big ugly giants over there. And to the north, we really haven't explored too much at all there. So with that in mind, I feel like we should just crack into a D3, as one does with a D3. Ooh, what a magical sound, right? A pound of dice. So let's go ahead and let's roll this D3. I'm thinking that what we can say is a 1 to 2, we will go west. 3 to 4, we'll go north. And at 5 or 6, we'll go east. Okay, north it is. Okay, I'm not actually too mad about this. So our party is going to be traveling north from Val'y'dar. So let's get into this. Looking at the map that we currently have, right up here, I'll put it right here, you can see that true north would send us into the water, which obviously that's not going to work out too well. So going north, we're going to have to travel northeast, then north, and keep going up that way. So we're going to be traveling to the hills, but I'm going to make sure this time we actually remember that we have horses, which I know in the last episode I made note that I forgot about the horses, but then again, we traveled on a small fishing boat, so we wouldn't have been able to take an entire team of horses anyway, which kind of complicates things. But that aside, we're going to pretend I remembered everything. Having our riding horses, our movement speed is going to be 240 feet as the movement rate there. Now, with that in mind, overland travel means that we'll travel 48 miles of overland at a time, right? So, since every hex is going to be 6 miles, it's going to make our travel a little bit easier. The only thing that complicates it, as we've seen before, is that different terrain types will cost different amounts of movement. So because we're going to be traveling on horses, and the horses are going to be moving us at 240, that's about 48 miles a day, okay? Ostensibly, if we were going to be moving through like the plains or whatever, and we were able to move 6 miles a hex, we'd be covering quite a lot of hexes. That'd be what, 24 hexes total, right? No, that's not math. That's okay. That'd be a third too. Don't listen to me. Yeah, that'd be 6 times 8. So yeah, 8 hexes. Don't worry, I can math. So because we're going to be traveling into the hills immediately, let's double check our weather and see what we got for weather before we head out. Because the party are just going to go ahead and go for this. I don't think we need to do too much of the, build up on how to get out here. So judging by the season and the time that we're going out, it's going to be a clear sky, 75 degrees, comfortable on our first day of travel. So our first day of travel, we'll just mark this. And, funny we should even mention this. I think the party should probably buy some more rations while we're at it. Let's do that. So because the rations, 1 week's worth of rations for our 4 party members, each one's going to be 5. I think our sugar daddy here is going to go ahead and spring for it. Val'y'dar the illusionist, sorry about that. Val'y'dar the illusionist is going to go ahead and spring the 20 gold for it, leaving him 53 left over. So Val'y'dar, the evil illusionist, has just bankrolled us. So day 1, we're going to head out. We're going to go ahead and get all kinds of procedural. So let's do the easy ones first. Let's just see if our party are able to grab any grub along the way, or if we need to start off immediately by paying the food toll. So again, because we have our ranger in the party, we're able to forage on a 2 and 6. So on a 1 or a 2, we're going to grab food, 1d6 rations, no food. Cool. Okay. So with that aside, let's see if there's a random encounter. So a random encounter out here, we'll call this the hills, just off the bat. So traveling in the hills, that actually might cause one. So a wandering monster in the hills is a 2 and 6. Lucky us. So, nothing. Okay. So the hills, of course, being what they are going to travel 33% slower. So our first step out here into the hills costs us 9 off of our 48 that we get in total. Okay? Then we're going to move into the forest. Now moving into the forest is also going to cost us, 33% slower, so that brings us up to 18 out of our total 48, which is fine. But now that we're in the forest, and we've been traveling at a pretty good rate, we're kind of at an impasse. So again, looking at the map, we do have a cave that I don't think we've actually heard about in rumors just yet, but that is to the northeast, but we said north. So I think we should just keep careening far north until we find something fun to deal with. So let's go ahead and roll on our table here in our hex exploring guide, and we'll see if we find anything fun. So we're first going to roll our d20 to see if the forest remains a forest. An 18, so it's not going to remain a forest. Instead, our forest will become hills, everybody's favorite. So traveling into the hills will cost us 9, so that brings us up to 27 for the day of travel already. Boom. Okay, and now let's see if we get something funky. So again, on a d8, on a 1 on a d8, we'll get something fun. It's as if the dice are listening. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and roll a d12 to see what we get for something fun. Real quick little guide here. 1 to 2 are ruins and relics. 3 or 4 are lurid layers. 5 or 6 is rivers, roads, or islands, but obviously no island here. And 7 8 is a castle or citadel. 9 or 10 is a temple or shrine. And 11 or 12 is a village or a town. They do make modifiers for this in the guide, but I kind of don't bother with that. A 1. So that is a ruin or a relic. Okay, typically ruins and relics are pretty simple. So let's see what we get. All right, let me bring this on down in here, just so we have an idea what I'm looking at. Okay, so first and foremost, we have to roll a d10 in order to see what the class of the ruin is. So let's go ahead and roll that real quick. So d10, we got a 9, so it's antiques. Okay, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with antiques, but let's see, I guess. So let's see, we've got remnants, remains, antiques. Okay, so first we got to start with a d6 roll on our antique type. Oops, probably helps if I roll it on camera. 6, that is a handicraft. Okay, so a handicraft, let's see what we get. 5, a ship's figurehead. Well, that's kind of fun. Okay, interesting. So it's going to be the figurehead of the ship, of a ship, that is. And, yeah, okay. So the party are going to stumble across that. Now, of course, we can roll to see all these extra things here, and we'll see what we get for all these. So it's covered by, the condition of this figurehead is fully covered. It is covered by earth. Okay, the state of it is fully operational. Okay, so it's covered in dirt, but somehow it's fully operational. The keeper of it, oh great, a giant type. Oh boy. Well, that's always fun. I think that we could argue that being a giant type and having dealt with our ogre friends before, it seems likely that there's probably an ogre or two over here that have found this thing and for some reason think there's some significance to this. So let's go ahead and roll and see what kind of giants might be looking after it. Alright, so for our ogres... Who doesn't love a good callback to those smelly ogres we dealt with before? So, with our ogres, terrifyingly stupid, we got 2d6 in the wild. Okay? So, with that in mind, let's roll real quick to see how many ogres are just hanging out around this random thing. 8 ogres. Holy cow. Okay. Now, let's see if we're surprised or not. I'm imagining that the ogres are probably pretty enchanted by this. I don't know. I mean, when we think about this, let's pause and give this a moment's thought. So, the ogres are surrounding the figurehead of the boat, right? We'll say that it's a mermaid for all intents and purposes, right? And it's buried, but it's fully intact. So something tells me that maybe these ogres came across this as part of like some treasure trove or something that they carry around, probably for some stupid reason or superstitious reason, right? And now it's buried in dirt. Probably to keep it safe or for some superstitious reason, right? So I'm imagining the ogres would probably protect this thing, but also maybe be fearful of it. So let's go ahead and roll to see if there's any surprise here. So let the party be orange, and let's see if either are surprised by each other. Okay, I got a 2 and a 2, which would imply surprise. But we do have our ranger in the party. So because we have Tamond, I'm going to make sure we get this stat correct. So he is only surprised on a 1. So I think that he, at the very least, would alert the party of the ogres, and we would be able to safely acknowledge that there were some ogres afoot. Now, I think the party, having seen how many there are, and seeing that they are definitely a very worthy foe, I don't think the party want to mess with this, right? So we're going to go ahead and leave that alone. And the party are going to sneakily escape, traveling away from here and moving on with their journey, continuing north and leaving this place behind. Which, I think that's a pretty safe bet. Alright, so back on the road again. We have 27 miles down. We still have 21 more to go. We're currently in the hills, so we're going to continue going north. So traveling away from hills, on a 1 through 10 it stays hills, and 12. So I'm pretty sure we become mountains. So hills do in fact become mountains, which means our party are going to double the total cost of movement. So this brings us up to 12. So that'll bring us to 39 total for traveling into the mountains. Let's at least see if we have something fun in the mountains. Okay, so nothing exciting. Okay, now that we're in the mountains, I've seen in the past there's been an argument that people are able to how do I say this? Look around the area, and that, like, from a certain height, you'd be able to see what would be in the area around. And as much as I want to indulge in it, I feel like that kind of would drag this to a standstill. And we might change that rule in the future, but for right now, I'm not sure that we absolutely need to. So yeah, we're just going to continue moving on. Since the party haven't encountered anything super fun here, we're going to keep moving into the next tile. So again, on a D20, 1 through 10, it stays mountains. Okay, mountains part 2. So that means our party will end their travel here in the mountains. Okay? Cool. So day 1 is complete. Alright, not bad. Now, because we didn't get to eat any food that we found along the way, we took off 4 of our total rations. We packed 1 per day for an entire week for everybody. So we have, at the very least, 28. So 4 out of our 28 total. Alright, so for day 2, I rolled on our weather, and I got windy. Moderate temperature, but windy. Now that we're in the mountains, I'm going to roll again to see if we can catch any food. 1 or 2. 3. So no dice. Now that we're in the mountains, and we're going to be traveling through the mountains here, we're going to roll for a random encounter. Now, unfortunately for us, as luck would have it, traveling in the mountains is pretty dangerous, all things considered. So, if I'm not mistaken, wandering monsters, yeah, mountains is a 3 and 6. So let's see what we get. 3. Who would have saw that coming? So let's quickly roll and see what we got for a random encounter for the mountains. Now we're going to need a D20 and a D8, and we're going to need a whole lot of hope that we don't run into something super crummy. But isn't that the name of the game? So here we are with mountains, barren hills, etc. So we got a D8 and a D20. 7 and 6. So a 6 on the D8 gives us humanoids. Okay, I can live with that. Table B, humanoids. So table B, humanoids, and we got a 7 on the D20, and that gives us storm giants. Man, we are really having a lot of giant interactions out here. So storm giants. All right, let's quickly flip to them and see what kind of damnation we have ahead of us. Giants, my goodness, we might be in over our heads with this one. Oh boy. So the party running into storm giants. Storm giants are 22-foot tall, holy cow, tall humanoids with bronze-hued skin and garish hair, red or yellow. Summoning a storm, oh gosh, so they might summon a storm. And then they conjure the lightning bolts, they have immunity to lightning. They have castles high among mountain peaks, atop banks of clouds, or in deep waters. They oftentimes have griffins, or underwater they have giant crabs. So they are lawful, which is intriguing. We have 2 evil members in our party, but at least we know right off the top that unless the party seem like they're threatening them, I don't think the party are going to truly be like immediately in harm's way. So let's go ahead and roll a reaction, shall we? So luckily we have Zion and we have Val'y'dar, our 2 attractive people in the party, so we get a +1 on the reaction roll at the very least. So 7 brings us to 8. That means it's neutral or uncertain. So I think that because the storm giants see us, there's that sense that we have to roll again. They see each other, and it's, well, funny story. Let's see if we actually even see each other. Yeah, so both are taken off guard by each other. So it seems like by the time they notice one another, it's too late for anybody to hide or get out of the way or catch anybody by surprise. So again, they're uncertain of one another. The storm giant's initial reaction is not to attack the party, and the party's initial reaction is certainly not to attack storm giants. How many storm giants are we talking about? Well, that's funny. We have 1d3. Okay, so 2 storm giants, just on a lovely romantic stroll in the mountains. Okay, so 4 plus 5 means unfriendly may attack. So the party probably are mistaken for being invaders maybe coming close to wherever this castle for the storm giants is. I'm thinking that because they're lawful and they may attack, they probably just look threatening to the party. And they probably demonstrate that they have weapons or guardians or whatever, and the party are going to skirt and just get the heck out of Dodge here, right? I don't think that these things would want to pursue. Seems like these party members probably don't have much to offer, even if summoning a storm might be enough to really get rid of them. We might even say, you know what? Unfriendly. Let's say they conjure a storm. So that way when the party are leaving, it makes it that much harder to get out of here. So we'll say total travel through this place is going to be double the already doubled pace. Now, because it's mountains, they're going to move 50% slower. Oh, I did that wrong earlier. I did double. 50% slower. So this will actually only cost us 9. Oh, so I've been doing this wrong the whole time. That's so funny. You know, it's kind of the stuff that we do when Dan has to do math on the fly. So 50% slower. It would normally be, because it would normally be 6 miles through here, it becomes 9 because it's 50% slower. And because our party are going to be traveling through the rain, I think I'm going to go ahead and double that. So this is going to be 18 miles worth of travel, right? So we're going to go ahead and say we did 18 just to get out of that one mountain square. Okay. So we're going to keep moving north. Well, you know, maybe the party are going to see this as an opportunity to parabola around. Let's take a peek at our map and see what seems like the best bet. So looking at the map, I think we've got the space that we could go exploring back around, but maybe we'll go north and east and loop it back down. So we'll go north, east right here. Okay, so because we're coming from the mountain, D20, 15, it becomes hills, and there's nothing fancy here. Okay, I can live with that. So traveling through the hills is going to be 33% slower, so that would mean that we have an additional 8. So that brings us to 26 to travel through the hills, because now we're doing our math correctly. You didn't see anything. Now we're going to move into the next hex, traveling from hills. Okay, so 1 on the D20 means more hills, and the 2 means nothing fancy. So that's, you know, take it or leave it, whatever, no big deal. Okay, so now let's roll for the next hex. Ooh, a 1, so something fancy, and because we're in hills, traveling with an 11, that means it becomes mountains. Because we're traveling into the mountains, it's going to be 50% slower, so we're going to move right up to a 35. So we don't have too much space left, but that 1 means we get to roll for something fancy. So let's go ahead and roll for that real quick. Okay, on a D12, we got a 2. So a 2 means more ruins and relics. Okay, let's get rolling for that. So, again, because we're doing our ruins and relics, we're going to start off by rolling our D10 to see what kind we got. So 3 gives us remains. Okay, so the remains we get are... Cool, so the remains type, it's going to be a D6. It's 4, so toys. Interesting. And we got 2. So toy vehicle. So some sort of little cart up here in the mountain. Interesting. And as far as further details, just for the sake of interest, we said that the condition is inside a cavern. Huh. Interesting. Inside the cavern, and it's going to be covered by vines. Interesting. So toy car in the cavern. Or I say toy car, I mean a toy cart. It'd be kind of creepy if there's just Hot Wheels out here. Anyway, in the current state of it, it's worm eaten. So some sort of wooden cart that's covered in vines being eaten by worms, and there's apparently potentially a keeper. We got 4, so undead types. Ooh. Interesting. So undead types. So judging by the fact that this is a pretty small situation here, some little cavern, I'm going to suggest what we do is we roll on the dungeon encounters table. We'll roll for levels 1, just level 1. I'm going to check how many undead we have on the table. We have in total, technically a necrophidius, which is terrifying, a poltergeist, so that's 2. We have a skeleton, which is 3. we have zombie, which is 4. So we'll roll a d4 and we'll see what we get. And I'm going to hope it's not the necrophidius, because my, what a way for us to die. Fighting in a cavern for some wooden Tonka trunks. I got a 2, which means we got not the necrophidius, but the poltergeist. Interesting. So 1d3 poltergeist. Okay, I got 1 single poltergeist here, which I guess that's better than, any other amount of poltergeist. When judging the danger of poltergeist, I think none poltergeist is the best amount of poltergeist. So as far as poltergeists go, they are invisible and incorporeal spirits which haunt the place of their death. They lift small objects and hurl them at intruders. Okay, it says that they're immune to effects that affect living creatures and immune to mind-affecting or mind-reading spells, so probably no illusions. Surprise, they always surprise unless the PCs can see invisible, which they can't. Ranged attack, they have 30-foot range and can only throw objects which are nearby, the toys. Mundane damage immunity, and attacking the poltergeist. Location can be deduced by the source of thrown objects. Attack rolls suffer -4 penalty. The party are definitely going to flee. I don't think that they're going to go ahead and deal with this nonsense. So as far as the hurled object goes, it has the potential to do a d4 of damage. So we're going to go ahead and roll 1 attack at one of the party members. I'm imagining Zion would probably be the first one in there, being the sneak. And so maybe we can go ahead and roll one of our thief skills real quick, just to see if our friend skulking into this cavern would even be seen by the poltergeist. I think it would be weird if they weren't seen by the poltergeist, but hey, who am I to judge, right? So as far as thief skills go, I did not write them down. That's so much fun. Okay, let's get the thief skills. All right. So Zion being a first level thief, her move silently check is pretty rough. We have a 20% chance of success. I'm going to say because the poltergeist haunts this place specifically, there's no bonuses to Zion's ability to get around this thing. So on a 0 or a 1. 2. I wish I said a 1 or a 2. So Zion tries to sneak in and is immediately spotted. Zion's armor class is a 6. So again, surprise, they always surprise, so the party aren't going to get to act first. Instead, this critter is going to go ahead and huck a toy car at our poor innocent thief. Let's hope for the best. So, yeah, alright, attack roll. Thaco of an 18, so unfortunately, I don't think it's going to hit us. Shucks. So, let's see, let's do our math real quick. So Thaco of 18, we hit a 0 on an 18, so that means we would need a 12 to be able to hit a 6. So with a 9, no. The poltergeist toy goes flying overhead. I imagine Zion not seeing anybody in here, with a little bit of sunlight left coming through the mountain's peak, probably sees a toy come flying at it from nothingness, sees this as a dangerous thing, and is just going to run. I don't think the poltergeist is going to pursue, and because our movement speed per encounter is 30 feet and we'll leave the range, let's roll for initiative just to see if we're going to get attacked again. So the party being orange, again, would mean that we win the initiative. So the party are able to run out the cave mouth and get the heck out of Dodge. We're not messing with any poltergeist. Alright, so with our tails between our legs and our lives secure, the party are going to continue meandering onward. So we don't have much ability to keep moving for today, but we're going to go ahead and keep moving. Anyways, so again, because where we are in the mountains, I think it's fair that what we do is, let's go ahead and roll for our next bit here for travel. I figure we can just continue in that kind of arc that we've been doing already. Maybe we'll go south this time. Yeah, we'll go pure south. Okay, ooh, a 19 from mountains might be something fun. So let's hope for something fun. We got, so a 19 from mountains gives us a forest. Okay, I can live with that. So let's plug that in. Now again, because we're moving to the forest, and the forester is going to take 33% more movement, that means that we will have gone 43. So I can live with this being the spot where we camp for now. The party are going to camp here. We're going to call it a night, and because we weren't able to forage anything today, we take another 4 of our rations, and that brings us to 8 total out of 24 that we've eaten. We're making great progress here with the help of having our mounts, if you can imagine that. So let's go ahead and go into the next day, shall we? Well, before we go traveling into the next day, something that I think might be kind of fun to consider, before we get too deep into the weeds here, is that the party have a lot of time during downtime to do sort of like party improv, something that might help us make our characters a little bit more interesting and give us a little bit more personality here. So I know that we've kind of imparted onto them a little bit of personality, but now that we've run away from big bad evils like big bad lawfuls like the storm giants, we outran the poltergeist and its tomahawking toys, and now we're at a point where we are sort of camping in the forest after escaping the mountains. This party has been through a bit of travel together, but really it's only been about a week. And I don't really have too much backstory for these people lined up, but I think that at least Zion and Tamond have been traveling together for a long time, and judging by the fact that they've kind of looked out for each other, I imagine there's a certain degree of respect for one another. And so for these characters to have respect for one another, it seems like they have to at least have a certain level of decency, right? Now, I think Todrick and Idalar especially being the little ponied up sugar daddy in this party, he probably sees them all as a means to an end, right? And Todrick, in the same sense, being an avaricious dwarf, probably sees this party as being people he tolerates. Now, does this mean he likes them? Probably not too much of a concern for Todrick or Idalar. But I do think that Tamond and Zion probably do have a certain level of respect for one another. And after having survived so much nonsense together, I imagine that these two probably like each other to a certain extent as friends. Now, being a ranger and being a thief, there's probably not too much overlap between the two of them, but at least we know that neither of them likely have any sort of like real formal training or anything like that. Whereas Idalar has probably spent, years honing his craft, and Todrick likely has the most martial training out of anybody in the party. So it seems like, oddly enough, the two people who have like honed craft through personal skill and the two people who have craft through teachings and through practice are kind of split on this lawfulness and goodness thing, with the evil characters having more practiced, rigid, and the people on the good side having more lawful, like personal training. So with that in mind, I imagine they'd probably talk about those sorts of experiences. I imagine Tamond would probably try to educate people as best he can in preparation. He's seen a lot of death in this party already, and probably at every chance he gets explains certain herbs and the behaviors of animals, how to interpret scat and like footprints and stuff. Nobody has the ability to read it like he does, but it's still something he teaches them. Zion, being the personable thief that she is, I imagine she probably just goes along with it. It makes good conversation. Todrick, again, probably does more burping, complaining about food, complaining about his feet, and probably does a lot of grumbling like that. Idalar, I could picture being sort of reclusive and probably making dark or twisted little jokes every once in a while that he can sneak in edgewise. Nobody really hears it, and when they ask him what he said, he probably just chortles to himself and says, "Nothing, don't mention it." So, I don't know, that's a little spitballing that I have going on, so, Anywho, on to our next little spit of travel here. Our party are going to move into day 3, and after having checked the weather on the old weather channel, the Donjon website has told me that it's a clear day in the 70s. So our party, being in the forest, are going to, I don't know, we've done really good with travel. I almost feel like maybe we should go south and kind of, wrap around the coast, Maybe we can see how far we can go with this. So let's go ahead and roll, just first and foremost to see if we can hunt anything out here. 1 or 2, nada. So let's go ahead and see if we get a random encounter. And here in the forest, 5, so no random encounter. And now just see what's south of us, a 1 and a 3, so more forest. Okay, cool. I can live with that. Okay, so we have our first 8 miles down. So let's go ahead and roll the next one. Okay, 7 and a 9, so more forest. Okay, so again, another 8, brings us 16. Cool. Okay, so next, 2 and a 7, so again, more forest. Now, something I also consider now that our map is pretty well filling up with these forests in at least a straight line, I do think that we're going to probably have to name this forest if it gets large enough, and I don't know. That's kind of an interesting concept. I'm sure the people of Val'y'dar have an idea what this forest would be called, but then again, if it's unmarked and unmapped, I don't know. We might have room to name it ourselves. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, though. Okay, next. Ooh, 15. Okay, so 15 means that our forest turns into plains. Okay, very good. So at least now we're going to be traveling at a faster rate. Because it's going to turn into plains, it's going to move to 30 instead of continuing our 8. It's going to be 6 instead. Okay, so now we have another little choice for ourselves. I think it makes sense that our party would probably continue moving back towards Val'y'dar and kind of looping it up and around, filling in all those gaps that we left behind. So let's honestly just do that. So traveling from the plains. Okay, so we got more plains. Excellent. All right, so driving north now from those plains. That brings us to 36. Let's see. 12 and 3 makes us another forest. Okay, cool. I kind of like when my map actually starts to like make some semblance of sense and it takes on a shape that looks more reasonable. You know what I mean? Like the forest feels like it's not just a strip, and instead it starts like, you know, branch out. No pun intended. Pun may be intended. Now, since we're going to be moving back into our wonderful forested territory, it is going to take up that extra 8 instead of 6. So that'll probably bring us to the end of our trip for today. And we're going to go ahead and erase. You know, I'm actually kind of happy that our party are at least in the general vicinity of Val'y'dar, or at least area we know of. So that'll make life easier for the next day. So let's real quick check our weather for tomorrow, just to see if we're going to get screwed on weather. And the next day, ooh, severe thunderstorm, it says. Interesting. Says that it's a high of only 53. Ooh. There's a part of me that wonders. I think with a severe thunderstorm, the party are going to stay where they are. Unfortunately, we are in the plains, so that might make it a little difficult. Oh, no, we're in the forest. So I think the party will at least try to keep camp here in the forest. And I think what we'll do is we'll just say that we're not going to go hunting. We're just going to hold tight, because I think reasonably speaking, our party probably wouldn't want to go venturing out there, and especially with the horses and everything getting spooked. I think the party are just going to hang tight here and hope for the best. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to run into a random encounter. Now, I think that because the thunderstorm would probably be pretty prohibitive of a lot of creatures traveling around, I think what we can say is that the random encounter in the forest would probably be -1. So our chances of running into a wandering monster, so in the forest it's a 2 in 6, so we'll say there's only a 1 in 6 chance of something encountering us. 4. So nothing's going to bother us. We're just going to skip the day. We're going to stay here in the forest and just munch our trail rations we got and just hang tight. So the next day is cloudy, bringing us to day 5. Let's go ahead and roll for rations. Or, sorry, roll for hunting. We got a 4, so nothing. Now we'll roll for random encounters. Now it's going to be back to the normal 2 in 6 chance. I got 2. Okay. Intriguing. Let's get on that. So forest. So D8 and a D20. Okay, 7 and an 8. So on the D7 is a monster and table F. That's not good. So table F, monster, and then we got an 8. So that gives us the mighty Otyug. Not sure if that's how to pronounce it. Otyug? 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 Anyway, weird pronunciations aside, I'm pretty sure the Otyug might not actually be too bad. Oh, I take it back. Aggressive, semi-intelligent, hulking, 8-foot around monstrosities with 3 stumpy legs, eyes on long tentacle stalk, and a sphincter-like mouth lined with fangs and 2 razor-edged tentacles. They lurk underground in piles of dung or carrion, which they consume. They crave fresh meat. Well, this is not good. So, random encounter, we'll at least see how many we got. So, evens, there will be 2. Cool. So there's just 1. I can deal with that. That doesn't seem as bad. Light sensitivity, so they'll suffer a -2 penalty to attack rolls and -1 to AC when in bright light. Because it's cloudy, I don't think we're going to consider this to be bright light. Kind of working in its favor. So, let's see. Often live in partnership with a powerful monster, living off of its dung and the carcasses of its victims, which that alone might be kind of a scary little thing to figure out. They have diseases, which is no good. and they're considered neutral. So this is really just kind of like a hungry beast, right? They often live in partnership with a, yeah, okay. All right, telepathic, can communicate non-verbally with any sentient creature. Ooh, okay, very well. So let's immediately roll to see if they even see each other. So the party are only surprised on a 1. Okay, so they're not surprised. And the Otyug is surprised on 1 or 2. Okay, so they're both not surprised. Okay, so encounter distance, let's go ahead and roll that. So it's 4d6 times 10 yards. So 7, 11, 17. So 17 times 10 yards brings us to, wow, that's a number, 510 feet. Okay, so we're quite a ways away. We probably smell this thing any time before we even have to encounter it. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and roll to see if what the state of this critter is. I imagine if it is out here in the forest, it probably is eating stuff, so it's probably not famished, right? But I guess the dice will tell. With a +1 from our party's attractive, awesome people. 7, so we get to re-roll. They're neutral or uncertain of each other. Odyug probably hears something and starts growling over. Party think it's probably a big giant bear. Okay, 5. Ooh, unfriendly, may attack. Again, if this thing's hungry, it'll probably come running in. Now, it's outnumbered, but it probably doesn't know how tough the party actually are. So let's see about this. I'll roll 1 more to see what's going on, and I'll roll with a -1 because it's unfriendly. I got 9, -1 is 8, so neutral or uncertain again. And a 9 brings us to an 8 again. 10, 9, indifferent or uninterested. Okay, that was very scary and very dangerous. We've gone out a lot of these kinds of fights just thanks to that roll alone. So we'll counter start. Honestly, if we had to go to blows, I kind of feel like what would have been sweet is if our illusionist, Val'y'dar, had used his spell of chromatic orb and would have cast the light version of it. Probably would have blinded the beast and sent it packing. But luckily for us, we never had to get down to that because I don't think the party would have survived. So cool. Okay, so the party wake up to that guy scrounging around. So let's see what the next tile that we're dealing with is. Okay. An 8 and a 3, so more forest. Again, we'll get that party started with 8. Okay, another 1. And a 9, a 3, so again, more forest. Cool, so 16. And we're going to travel again once more north. We'll see what we get. I think because it's mountains right above us, maybe we'll roll for mountains and see what the mountains give us. So 12 means it breaks into hills. It's kind of what I was anticipating happening. That at least gives us another 8, so 24. Okay, let's put that in. Okay, and then we'll roll again from the hills. Ooh, 15 brings us to mountains this time. And since we're traveling again into mountains, we're going to do 90% more, so 33 miles of travel. Okay, put that mountain. Now, we have only 1 tile left that we haven't yet explored in this area. So let's go ahead and roll for that. 11 and a 1. Well, look at that. It's almost like the game knew that we'd gone all this time without anything exciting. So an 11 means we're going to change from mountains to hills, which again, the map is looking beautiful with these random rolls. Let's put that in right here. Okay, and so obviously, because we're at like 41 for travel, we're going to wrap it up for the day on that one. Unless we have to escape. But let's not say that part out loud. So let's roll to see what we got for the random thingy on this space. If we get another ruins or relics, I'm going to be a little sad. Teardrops. Okay, here we go. Oh my god. Cock die. 2? Dude, these dice really want more ruins. I'm not going to deny the die. I don't like that rhymed as it did. But I'm not going to deny the die. It said 2, so let's see what we get for more ruins. Shall we? Okay, so another D10 to see what we get. 10. Artifacts. Okay, artifacts might be pretty good. I'm hoping that means that it's something very interesting. So, antiques and artifacts. Ooh, okay. This is going to get potentially pretty exciting. Alright, so let's see. It's kind of a bummer having to shoot the way I am, but artifact type. Wow, this is a terrible angle. Let's go ahead and roll for some of these artifact types, shall we? Artifact type, start off with a d6 roll. We got a 1, so it's a weapon. Ooh. Okay, and now the type of weapon is 4, a club. Okay. Interesting. So they find a club. So any artifact should have strange powers and quite possibly its own intelligence. None of this may be made apparent to the finder until such point that the artifact chooses an intelligent club. All right. Again, we should check now, especially now that we know that it's probably intelligent. Let's roll to see the current condition and all that stuff. So for ruins, there's a lot of ruins. Okay, so the condition of this thing is 9, partially sunken. Okay, that's interesting. It's covered by sand. Interesting, out here in the hills. Its current state, it is collapsed and tumbled. So, okay, that's weird. And the keeper, 2 giants. Oh my lord, more of these giants. So somehow these giants are just always hanging around, and they're always hanging around half-sunken weird stuff. But the fact that they're hanging out around the sunken club, I almost wonder if the sunken club is intelligent enough that it's kind of called them here. And maybe that's the reason why they were so weirdly invested in that weird wooden figure for the boat. So yeah, okay. So knowing that this club is likely intelligent and it's going to make itself known at some point, we'll say that there's some level of command it has over the ogres, right? And that they're sort of sitting around it. It's sunken in the sand, in this weird mound of sand in the hills when the party stumble upon them. So let's go ahead and see, are the party surprised on a 1? No. Are the ogres surprised on a 2? No. Okay, so now that we know we're not surprised, again, we'll roll to see how far away we are. 8 and 10, so 18. So that'll be 510 for the first one, and then we got 40 on top of it for yards. So it's what, 630, something like that. Anyway, far away. The party can tell from very far away, over 600 feet. Now we can roll for our sweet reaction. We get a +1. 7 brings us to 8, so they're uncertain of each other. 5, unfriendly may attack. We have the club hanging out here, so I'm sure they're going to protect themselves. So let's figure out how many there are. Again, there's 2d6. It says randomly appear. So 5, 11 ogres. Holy God. I don't know that the party are going to be able to outrun them. I have a feeling we will because, again, we're going to be on horses and we're traveling the way we are, so we'll likely be able to shred out of there if we can. Now, the ogres are 8 to 10 feet tall, and again, yeah, they travel in groups of 2 to 6. Okay? 2d6, rather. So, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of treasure to be found. I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks because we've got such speed on our hands, we might want to actually try something of like, you know what I mean? Like some kind of attack maneuver, just to see if we have a chance, maybe of breaking their morale. If we can kill one of them or something, maybe that would be enough to break them. So let's figure out the situation a little bit more. Let's get a little bit of a battlefield going. Again, we already know this is the end of that day. Okay, so here we have the hills. There's some mountains to the north part. So I'm going to say that overall terrain, the larger sense of terrain, there's a steep incline, right? And the party are traveling here through the hills and making their way in. And there can see that there is that large sand pit, right? There's the club in the middle, and there's 11 of these ogres hanging out. There's a lot of ogres, right? So the party are over here, about 600 feet away. Again, I'll just get the rough estimate of 600, just because we got, 18. Am I stupid? I think I might be stupid. It's like 480. Okay. Yeah, 18 times 3. Very good. No, 540. God. Who's letting me do math? Who's letting me have a YouTube channel? Who's letting me do math? So 540 feet away, the party are. And they're just traveling around in these hills here. So I imagine the party being at that much of a distance, have the good opportunity to get the heck out of Dodge. But I don't know if they want to. Since we see that the ogres are all standing around and protecting something, it might make sense for the party to take it upon themselves to hang out, wait for the right opportunity to strike, and just go for it. The only ranged character in the group of any note is Zion with a short bow, and our friend Hammond has javelins. We also have a spell that we could use, the Chromatic Orb spell, which that alone might be a good idea to use. Again, just because we have such an advantage with speed on these ogres, I think that it would make sense that we consider an opportunity to maybe turn the tide in some sort of a strange break. The Chromatic Orb has a range of 60 feet, so maybe what we'll do is we'll say that the ogres will just come steamrolling in, all 11 of them, and come trudging towards the party, looking to get them out of here. And because the party don't back down, I imagine they're just going to amp it up, right? So, again, we'll check the overall speed of the ogres. The ogres are moving in one round 90, whereas our horses are doing 240. So again, I think all things considered, our party are all good. Now again, I could consider the modifiers for the fact that this is hilly terrain and have that impacted, but everybody's impacted by the same, so I'm not even going to bother. So the first round, the ogres will travel 90 feet up, and the party are probably going to travel on their horses 240 feet towards them. So out of the 540 between them, we cleared it to 210 feet of distance between the two of them. I think now, on this next round, I'm not rolling initiative, just because I'm imagining the party's going to forfeit the initiative just so they'll be arranged for a ranged attack. Again, because Zion is able to attack from a distance of 150, I think she's just going to let them move up the next 190. And because they move up another 190, we clear a gap to 120 feet. Again, unfortunately, the next ranged attack that we have in the party, the next two of them, will be a javelin, which we can toss in the next round, and casting our spell of Chromatic Orb. It's going to be dangerous for the party because they're going to be real close and they're only 30 feet away from the ogres by the time that we're going to be running for our lives. So that's definitely a gamble. But I think that the party are stupid enough to try it. Come on, what's a little excitement, right, guys? Right. So because we're at the last bit of range increment, we take a -1 to the attack roll. Zion is rolling basically natural right now. It would be really cool if somehow we could pull off a good bit of damage on an ogre. The ogre's armor class is a 5, and because she is THAC-O 19, she'll need to roll a 14 or higher to hit it. Let's see if we can get a crit. 6. So the arrow peters off, goes flying by, misses. The ogres are shouting, spit flying in the air. They're snarling, screaming, swinging their clubs over their heads and making their way downtown. We're going to let them move, and the party are going to be prepared for the next action. So they move up the extra 30. Ogres are only 30 feet away. This is terrifying. So the party, after having waited for him again, we're going to fire off another arrow, throw another javelin, and we're going to cast that orb. We're going to hope if we can kill at least one of them, it might be enough to break the resolve. So first and foremost will be ranged attacks. So we'll do the bow. Okay, 17 means that's a hit. We get a d6 of damage. 2 points, okay? And then ogres, on average, will have 19 hit points. So 2 total damage means that we have quite a ways to go. Now we're going to try to toss a javelin. A 7. So no matter what I roll, that's definitely not going to work. Now, maybe the orb, Chromatic Orb, will be enough to turn the tides here. I really, really, really doubt it. So let's go ahead. So the spell save for the ogre, 17, that's brutal. Spell save, so our ogre actually passes on the spell save. So the orb goes veering by, and just to make sure, so if the target fails a saving throw versus spells, it's surrounded by light in a 15-foot radius for 1d4 rounds. In low light conditions, attacks are made at a bonus. So So the orb hits unerringly, inflicting damage on the target and another effect that depends on the save. So we actually do a d4 damage no matter what. 3. Okay, cool. So he's at least lost, a total of 5 points. That's not amazing, but now is where it gets kind of tricky. We're only 30 feet away. If we lose initiative, the ogres are going to surround the party. I don't know why anybody let me get to this point, but here we are. Partier orange got a 6, hell yeah. And they got a 1, double hell yeah. Okay, so the party are going to move and then shoot. So the party are going to probably move just to stay out of kicking distance of these guys. So we're going to move our full, let's say we'll move 90. Well, that's actually a good question. Because if the party decide to move just enough to be still within range, that means if they lose initiative on the next round, the ogres will catch up. So I'm almost thinking the party might want to, now that we've pulled the ogres out of here, and we can see that there's that strange club just sticking out of the sand, what if the party did this as one big pull, this one big rug pull of a move, pulled them here to this midpoint so that they could loop it around and go slurp it up and make their way and keep running out of here? I think that makes all the sense in the world. Now, because we've got so much speed on these guys, I think that doing the math on this, if we were to travel 240, let's say every square is 3, right? So if we moved 30, 60, 90, 120, I'm trying to think. Maybe that's not a great visual for it, but in my mind I'm thinking if the ogres just have to travel 90 to get to them, and the party are going to do 240, they'd have to really, arc it out wide with 240, if that makes sense, right? And then the next turn, the ogres will probably have to try to play catch up while they continue. Again, double and a half the speed of the ogres. So I think overall, no matter how you slice it, this will work out. I think because we won the initiative, we started this parabola, the ogres are there, and then we're going to have another round. So even if they won the initiative twice, they still wouldn't be able to catch up. So the party will be able to do this. Now here's my question. If all 4 of the party members are commanded to grab for this club and hopefully grab it and get on the way, let's see, I don't know, who would be the first to grab it? Probably whoever's in the front and most dexterous. And because we don't really have a lot of time to sit around and grab it, because the ogres are going to be right on our tails, I think that it would probably make sense that the party would all take a dexterity check to try to grab it. So first, Tamond will try, and that'll be a 13 or lower to succeed. 9, perfect. So Tamond just scoops it right on up. But now that we've scooped it up, I do wonder if we should consider the nature of this magic item. Now, because it is considered magical and intelligent, that might be something that becomes immediately apparent to the party. Now, I don't think that the club would be in its right mindset to just go immediately making itself known to the party as soon as they scoop it up. I think what would probably make more sense is it would wait till they're at a point where they're comfortable and safe and sound to make itself known. So when the party scoop up this strange-looking club, let's say it's made out of bone, right? And it's wrapped with like a quick iron band at the top. And there's a couple of iron spikes jutting out of it. Something really brutal and metal-looking. And even as Tamond picks it up and holds it in his hand, you can tell that it's like borderline weightless, right? So as he scoops it up, the party continue on their way. The ogres screeching, hooting, hollering, trying to get back for their club, and they start yelling out in their ogreish tongue something to the effect of, whatever the name they have for this strange club, and perhaps they know something about the club that nobody else does. Nobody speaks giant, so they have no idea. And as the ogres continue to trudge behind them, attempting to catch up with them, the party are able to easily outrun them on their riding horses and just keep on moving, right? Now they travel for another couple of miles, ending likely in the next terrain over that the party know at least what it is. And since they know that the next tile over on their way back to Val'y'dar would be a forest, they're going to go ahead and just camp out in that forest and hope the ogres don't follow them. But maybe we should consider the oracle. Will the ogres pursue them? Or have they been freed of the curse of that strange club? Let's roll. Again, 1 being yes, but 3 being yes and 4 being no, but yeah, right, you get it. 2, so yes, they will follow. Okay, so the ogres will just pursue them, which would make it very difficult for the party. I imagine once they know that the ogres are probably tailing them, they're going to have to continue traveling. Now, here's the question. Would the ogres be able to catch them off guard? Remember, the party are only surprised on a 1. 4. So no, the party are not surprised. The ogres have been trailing them and following them and doing their best to keep up. So the party won't be surprised by this. But I wonder if the party, now that they know that they're still being pursued like that, and the ogres weren't really able to keep up with them. I guess what we're really dealing with is if the ogres would have the capacity to actually track them. Now, I don't think that that's very likely, so I'm going to roll a d20, and if we get, I don't know, I don't want to say it's a 5% chance, but it feels like it'd be a 5% chance to track them. So let's say on a crit, the ogres are able to actually locate them miles away. An 18, a little too close for comfort, but okay, so the party are safe enough on that. Party camp out for the night, no issues there. So now the party are definitely at the tail end of their trip out of here. And we're going to go ahead on day 6 and just try to get our booties back to Val'y'dar. We're right now in the hills. We've traveled to the forest. And so that means now we're going to have to make our way back. So let's go ahead and roll just to see if we get food. 2 means we do get food. We get 1d6 rations, 1 single ration. So, okay. So we eat 23 for today. Now let's roll for, well, let's get the weather, shall we? And now, weather in your area. It's clear weather. Who doesn't love that? And now let's roll for random encounters. Because we're traveling through forest, we'll roll for that. 1 or 2. Fudge. Well, wouldn't it be funny if we got giants? Wouldn't that just be our luck? That would be literally like every single encounter has been a giant. Alright. Why did I roll? Oh, yeah, right. 20. Ooh, 20 is usually not good on an encounter table. So let's see. We're in the forest. We got table 2. Alright, table 2 is a dragon. Of course it is. Why wouldn't there be a dragon following us? Table 1 dragon, 20 would be a salamander? What the hell is a salamander doing out here? What in the world? Alright, so the party are traveling through the forest, and somehow, some way, some big old salamander is just yeeting through the forest. They have an affinity for extreme heat or cold, which is why they're in a temperate forest on a regular old day. Number encountered is, of course, 2d4 in the wilderness. 2, 3. So there are 5 of them in total. Salamanders, flame salamanders, which makes, I think, more sense that we'd have flame salamanders here, just because native to the plain, also live in volcanoes and scorching deserts. You know, why don't we say it's frost salamanders? Because I think that the idea that they dwell in icy wilderness regions makes more sense than a desert. I mean, honestly, the whole encounter feels kind of very weird, but whatever, who am I to judge? Let's roll a d3 for this one. We got 2, so 2 frosty salamanders. Very good. They're chaotic, so they will probably follow. Let's see, they are unharmed by cold-based, can only be harmed by magical, and all creatures within 20 feet will suffer damage. So, don't like that. So the party are only surprised on a 1, 5. They're not surprised, and our frosties are not surprised either. Alright, so let's go ahead and roll to see if they even care. +1. 9. So they are indifferent. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness. Okay. Okay, so that aside, the party are going to find their way back to Val'y'dar. Holy cow. Alright, meet me back at the camera. Let's wrap this up. Okay. Alright then. Our guide joined us, and the lava lamp is lava lamping. So now that we've reached Val'y'dar, we don't have any XP because we haven't really killed anything. We did a whole heck of a lot of exploring in this episode. Like, our map is really well filled out. And now we have a very interesting little conundrum in our hands. We have to figure out what the heck is going on with this club that we've recovered from the ogres. And to be honest, there's a lot of ogres in this area. I almost wonder if maybe the club has something to do with that. So something I'd like to pose to you guys, anybody watching this who'd like to get involved, in the comments below. What do you think would be a cool, intelligent, or magical, mysterious function for this bone club with a metal grip and the spikes going through it, right? I think that there's a lot of room for this thing to be evil, but I think there's a lot of room for this to be just neutral and weird and commanding. Remember, the ogres were willing to, they had it buried in the sand. They didn't hold it, but they had it buried in the sand, and they were willing to protect it, chasing after these guys and potentially even becoming foes of the settlement for the long run, right? So, that in mind, again, comment below with what ideas you might have. In the next episode, we'll figure it out, whether or not we use your suggestions or we roll up something weird and wacky. But frankly, I think we're due for a magic item, something to really start, evening the playing field. But with that in mind, thank you everybody who's continued to watch. I've had a real great time running this with you guys, and honestly, the procedural generation in this game system is so weird to me and so fun and so addicting that right now, it's midnight and I have work tomorrow. But in my mind, I'm you get that itch to scratch, where you're just so excited to jump back downstairs in the old dungeon here and just start chucking dice and seeing what we run into, We've got poltergeists hucking toys at people. We've got giants worshipping a club in the ground, frost salamanders. This is hectic and crazy, but we love it. And frankly, I love all of you as a friend. Don't read into it. Thank you for watching again, and I hope you join me for the next one. So, see you later. Bye-bye.